welcome to another episode of Delight and Fright. This is my lovely cat, and we have a very special guest in the house named Lou. And we're discussing a little bit of what her work and Nine Windows.
Hi
How are
guys.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Miss Cat, would you like to take us away with the questions?
Sure. We had the pleasure of meeting Lou at Spooky Empire last year. It's been a year almost? Wow, time flies.
Has
Actually,
it
it was
been? No, it was
December.
November or
Yeah,
October. October. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
October
God.
of last year. But we're almost coming up on another one, right?
Mhm.
So we were very fortunate to get to see your movie Nine Windows,
Oh.
which I loved. We both really enjoyed. So we just kind of want to know, first off, how have you taken it from here? Have you got to show it anywhere else? Have you got to any distribution in the works? Anything like that?
Yeah, we did a few film festivals, not a lot. We weren't really looking to do a bunch. It gets very expensive, to be honest. So we just went with some that we know we like, we enjoyed, we like the experience, and that we know it's going to be a good filmmaker experience, because there's some that honestly it just feels like you played in a whatever, in a theater or what have you, and then you never really get anything out of it. um, and then we're still pursuing distribution. Unfortunately, it just gets harder and harder every year. It's been a bit of a battle this time. We have offers, but nothing that I feel like really committed to. They're still there, so that's always a possibility. But we kind of were hoping for something slightly, I don't know, like more exposure than what we've gotten in the past. So still waiting to hear on a couple of things. I'm supposed to have a couple meetings next week with the sales agent, so hopefully I'll have some more definitive news soon.
And you want to
Ooh.
make sure it's done right. I mean, we've heard a lot of horror stories from
Yes, right.
directors and things that we've talked with about things that can happen in the long run that can really, put things behind, especially if you're trying to set up a franchise or something like that. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's
I've had,
best to take your time.
yeah, I've had a mixed bag. I have one distributor that I've had a very good experience with, and I've used, he has 3 of my films. But it just it's just getting harder and harder to get your money back. Get the investors their money back. So I wanted to pursue like bigger options and stuff like that. So we're saying, it's it's hard. It's hard out there. When people ask me, I'm like, oh, I want to make a movie. I'm like, do you really want to though?
Yeah, that's true. That's
It's
true.
day and night from like when we started in 2014, when my first film released in 2014. We did so well with it. It made money. It just was, all these different, streamers, and it was on. I remember this is back when when Netflix had the DVD options, and we were on that, and we were on on Redbox and all this stuff, and I was like, oh my god, this is so easy, I can do this all day. And then we've never been able to achieve that level of success again, even though the films have gotten better. It's just that every outlet that used to be like a given is no longer a given. In fact, a lot of the stuff disappeared. You no longer have Blockbuster. You don't have DVD sales, and that kind of thing. So it's just getting harder and harder, to be honest.
Ooh.
And like
Oh,
you said too, everybody wants to make a movie, right? Just like everybody wants to lose weight, right? It's
Yeah,
that dedication behind it and the fight that makes it happen. And
yeah, and that's part of the problem, is that there's so many films out there, so many low budget films, specifically horror, more than probably any other genre, because that's the first thing that they tell everybody. It's like, oh, just make a horror film. It's easy to make. You don't need a cast, and and it's got like this very committed audience. So no matter what, it'll be a hit. And because of that, people who don't even like horror are making horror films, and then that just kind of devalues everybody else's project, because there's just so much. Distributors don't need to give you a minimum guarantee when there's 20 other people behind you, willing to give their film.
That was my similar thoughts when Luna said she wanted to start a podcast with me. I was like, there's so many of them, but then I thought that doesn't mean we can't be different. You can't make it better or different. Everybody has different tastes and likes and things. So that's why I'm glad that I did, even though, there's so many podcasts out there. And I'm so glad that you're making films, because your work is beautiful.
Oh,
and I wish we do you have like a trailer or something for Nine Windows or something else, so we can just kind of give everyone a little tidbit?
Sure. I mean, we have a trailer. I can share it with you, I guess, and we can put it whenever you air it or something.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a link for it, you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, if it's on YouTube, I can easily find it.
Let me see. Let me find it for you.
I found it.
Oh, you found it? Okay, there you go.
I found it. I'm the expert finder, the link finder.
Yay, Google and YouTube. Well, I guess YouTube is owned by Google, so.
Right.
But while before Luna pulls that up, I'm really hoping that actual theaters come back, and I think that's the way a lot of independent filmmakers will be able to show their films, if they start doing like double features and things like they did in the past, to get people to originally start going to the theater. I know there aren't many little local theaters. I do have one in my area. It's called Cinema 6. So I'm not sure if maybe you could get your film to, take it theater to theater, like they did back in the day, and maybe that would help and help the theaters as well. I'm not sure if that might be a viable option for the future, being that everybody's trying to go digital, but there are still a lot of us that believe the actual media is the way to go, because streaming's not guaranteed. How many times have they altered movies? How many times have they flat out pulled movies? Or the quality is terrible sometimes, depending on where you live.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know if the future for independence is going to be the theaters, to be honest, because even big stuff with huge actors and whatever is not even going to theater anymore. So I don't know, and I think that's part of the problem, is that we're kind of like in this moment where nobody knows what's happening. Like even big studios don't know what's going to happen, and it just leaves us in this really awkward situation where you don't know. There was a moment where there was at least a flow, and you knew, okay, if I make this kind of film, this is the kind of projections that I can tell my investor, this is what you're likely to make, or this is what this is what it should cost, and this is where we're gonna. Now you honestly don't know. It's so, and it's not just independents. I mean, even big studio stuff they don't know.
Like everyone's in limbo.
Yeah, it's a weird time in the industry. I mean, people were out of work for months, last year, and they may be out of work for months again this year. IATSE might go on strike now, so it's just a weird time, in the industry completely. So I don't know. I don't know that anything is going to be the same 5 years from now. I wouldn't be surprised if the whole system completely changes,
Yeah, that's true. So let me go ahead and show this trailer, because this movie was just phenomenal.
We have to decide soon.
It's Liza's day. It should be whatever she wants.
Hey, kiddo, we're really proud of you.
I know, Dad. see what these losers are up to today. No, I've got too much work to sleep.
So much trolling to do. We are gonna have to figure out if this is a hoax or not.
I'm not hallucinating.
Stop playing online, detective. Leave the investigation to us. I gotta call the cops. It does look real.
It is real. All the time I was with the Bureau, this is the sickest one of all of them.
I was wondering if anyone was on last night.
So you're sure it was the same guy?
Bet my life on that. Front door open.
Ooh. That one, that got me. That got me good seeing it in person. It's just, it's really hard. It's really hard to watch. Not in a bad way, by all means, Lou. And actually, the complete opposite. It was just so like, so much to take in. Now, how much? I know this is still. It showed in a few conventions. It's doing the convention runs. How much are we able to discuss this? Are we kind of, over? Can we?
Well, I definitely don't want any spoilers, but it's not a major spoiler movie. Like, there's no big twist or something like that. So I think it's pretty safe to discuss it. Like there's no. I mean, it's no The Sixth Sense or something. So.
Okay. Well, in the trailer, we do see the use of. There is obviously a killer. And we also see that the killer is doing his deeds on an online platform. So I like the way that you incorporated, the whole Zoom meetings and all of that into like a horror story. How did you come up with that? Like a serial killer killing on a live chat room and then somebody needs to find him. And, how did you come up with that concept?
Well, it started with the movie Rear Window, right? I'm a huge Hitchcock fan, and I was watching it for, I don't know, for like the 20 millionth time. I don't know. I've seen that movie so many times. And it kind of it struck me the difference between 1954 when that film was released, that you're supposed to be somewhat shocked about the fact that he's looking through his windows at his neighbors, right? And looking into their lives. And yet now people are willingly sharing everything about their personal lives online. So you don't need to be peeping through their windows anymore. You can just totally just follow them or whatever, and you'll get probably more information than you want, to be honest. So when I thought about that, I'm like, oh, there's a story in that, right? Like if you were to make this movie in 2023, it would be a very different idea. Like instead of you looking out your window to look at your neighbors, you're looking at windows on a computer, and those are the windows that that people are looking at. So the idea is that she's online on a website that's it's like a mixture. It's a completely fictitious website, by the way, but it's like a mixture between YouTube and what's the name of that website? It's like Neighbors or something like that, where you kind of get the news. You know which one I'm talking about? That you get like news and you find a handyman or whatever. I still.
Oh yeah.
I get stuff once in a while from them, or like saying, oh, there's like whatever, there's a storm coming or whatever. So that it's a similar kind of a website, and this guy just happens to go on there and starts posting videos of him killing people. And at first everybody thinks it's kind of like, it's a hoax. Obviously he's not really going to be doing that, so it has to be that he it's either somebody just doing it with special effects, or that kind of thing. So so it's a similar dynamic of watching this crime happening and then not being believed, which is the same thing as Rear Window.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the element, the main character, obviously it's shown on the trailer, but she does have a disability because of the accident that she was involved. You see that in the trailer. So do you think that adds to an element of her being more vulnerable and not being believed? Because they're like, oh, what does she know, kind of thing. She's just homebound. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the original movie, Jimmy Stewart has a broken leg. In this one, she is recovering from a car accident that killed her parents. So she's presently unable to walk, but she's has a potential of recovering if she does whatever she needs to do. But I think she has a little bit of survivor's guilt. And is almost being a little like this is her way of punishing herself, is by not trying. Like she doesn't deserve it. She should have survived. So I think that the discovering that this is happening gives her a sort of a sense of purpose, a reason to actually rejoin society. She's become a little bit of a recluse, living in her house. She's not going out, she's not doing anything. She's she's just basically a home. She's actually trolling people which I always love the very first scene. She's being really awful to people online, and it always, every single time I watch it with an audience, the reaction of people when they're like, what a bitch. Like, did you just say that? But I love it because you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to have that kind of reaction for her, but at the same time, be somewhat sympathetic that this is a person that has been through this really traumatic experience, and this is her way of lashing out. So yeah, like I think first of all, women have a hard time being believed, period, at all times. It even in the 21st century, we still have a little bit of, you go to doctors and they don't believe that you're in pain. I went through 3 years of fighting with doctors saying, I have this horrible pain, and nobody ever believed me. And I was like, oh, we can't find anything. It must be in your head. No, it's not. I'm not imagining this. So it's still happening. So there's that. And then there's the additional, just it adds the fact that this is all happening online. So with everything that all the hoaxes, and now with AI, which is not really part of this story, but it will be in future stories, I'm sure. How much do you trust anything that you see in the internet? So the fact that it's happening on the internet, it just adds to the nobody believing her.
And the acting in the film is just amazing. How did you find your actors, Lou?
Some, like William Forsythe, who is he's so good, and he's so perfect for that role. I couldn't have found a better actor for that. He reminds me a lot of the actor that played the original detective in Rear Window, so he's perfect for it. But he's big on going to conventions. So a friend of mine who works for conventions was the person who suggested him and put me in contact with him. Michael Pere, my producing partner on this film was the one who had a relationship with him and brought him on board. Diana was not my first choice, but not for the reason, not because she's not a great actor. I was really, really trying to cast an actress that had a real disability, and it just was overwhelmingly hard. So I had to rewrite the character a little bit, and which actually worked out perfectly, to be honest, because some of the stuff the way it was written the first time, I don't know how I would have done it. It sounded great when I was writing, but then once we were shooting, I was like, yeah, that wouldn't have worked. So sometimes the higher power knows better than you what's better for you, because when we couldn't cast an actress that had paraplegia for real, I rewrote this script, and I had seen Diana in a friend's film, and by that time we only had like a month before we were supposed to film. So I was like really like, I don't have time to do an audition at this point. I have to like go with people that I know can carry this film. And I had seen her, and she was so good in it that that I brought, I just sent her the sides. I'm like, can you do a real quick audition for this? And she nailed that. So I brought her in. And then Christopher, who plays her love interest in this, was actually in my last film, 73 Minutes. And he was so good in that. And we shot that during the pandemic. And so it was the only time that I have done a film where I didn't pay anyone, where it was just kind of like, oh, let's all just make a film together. So I was like, you know what? I owe you like a real, like a part in a speaking, like in a paid, role. So, and he's so good, and he's got that leading man, charisma and looks and whatever. So I knew he'd be perfect for this because he's very handsome, but he's also has this tenderness to him and just like this real relatability that's, kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I did notice, just looking at your IMDb a little bit, I wanted to check you out and see all the very cool stuff you've done. You were born in Havana, Cuba, weren't you?
I was, yes.
So we actually, Kat has a very nice and lovely friend that also has family from Cuba, I believe. So that's pretty fantastic. So how was it growing up in Cuba? How did that influence you into the horror genre? Was there like a Cuban story that kind of were like, ooh, I can make this into like horror? Or how did you get involved in that community?
It's definitely not from my childhood, because of the embargo. Stuff is really, and because of the communist country, everything's very limited over there. So the only horror films that I saw growing up were like the old 1930s, Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, monster films. So I didn't watch a lot of horror growing up. It wasn't until I came to this country that I started watching horror films. But it really, the horror really, like I watched horror films my entire life, loved them. Didn't think about, honestly, I had no clue that independent filmmaking even existed. Like for me, everything was made in Hollywood and required, millions and millions of dollars. It wasn't until I started writing scripts. And when that didn't pan out, I was like, okay, what's, I mean, mind you, I didn't try it for very long, to be honest. I wasn't like 10 years trying to be a screenwriter and not making it. It was only like a year and a half. A friend of mine had this idea of like, well, let's just make one. and that's it. We'll make one, and that's going to be our way of breaking in, and that's it. After that, we would have shown our talents, and we will be discovered, and that's it. We'll never have to make another one again. So we did, and it was just a complete flop. It was a complete failure, but it was a huge learning experience. And then I took that knowledge and I was like, I kind of enjoyed the whole directing thing. Maybe I should, maybe I should do that again. And so that parlayed into Hazmat, and Hazmat was a huge success. And then it was like, okay. And then now it's been 6 more films after that. So, but not sure there'll be a 7th after that, to be honest. Is rough. But yeah, no, I mean, I just, it's, once I made that first film that was also a horror film, I kind of like was just hooked on the whole, horror filmmaking, just going to Horror Hound and all these other different conventions and like being part of that community, it's just, there's, I think other than maybe like, I don't know, Comic-Con or something like that, you're not going to get that kind of sense of community anywhere else.
Absolutely. And you got to think, even though, it's tough to get the films out there, the ones you do have out there, they could live forever, right? They could be generational. It could find a love later in life. Sadly, a lot of movies do that. And film has only been around for like 100 years, right? So it's evolved so much just in such a short time in the whole scope of things. If we just pan out and look at everything as a whole, yes, it's very hard and stressful right now, but that doesn't mean there could be something amazing around the corner, right? We always have history repeats itself, right? We have terrible things that happen, plagues and whatnot. I'm waiting for a renaissance. When is that coming? I'm very excited about it, and I'm just gonna like keep thinking about it and bring it into life.
You're so hopeful. My God, I need you in my life. You're so much more hopeful than I
We
am.
all need the beautiful Miss Cat around.
I mean, yeah, like I think I forgot what movie I was watching the other day that I thought, I bet you, I mean, this is a movie that's like 50 years old or something. And when I say 50, I think like 1950s, but it's not. 50s is 70s. And here I am watching it, in 2024, like this, and it wasn't even that great of a film, but here it is still available for me to stream it, and I was just like, I bet, when they made it, they had no clue that 50 years later, here would be some crazy woman, watching it in her TV at home. So yeah, I think about that. Like, no matter what, those are my babies. I always joke around about how they're my children. It's hard to choose because they're all my children. So yeah, no matter what, those are my babies, and they will carry on. They're my progeny.
Oh, that's so awesome. So earlier in the show, you mentioned your first movie that came out in 2014? Which movie were you referencing?
Oh, Hazmat.
Hazmat. Interesting. You wrote that and directed that?
Wrote, directed, produced. That was the only film actually that I produced all by myself.
Ooh.
As well as wrote and produced. That was a lot of work.
Wow. So you were the writer, producer, and director?
Yep.
Whew, triple role. I'm gonna have to check that out and send you a dissertation. I can't even talk. Oh my goodness. A dissertation of what I found the movie to be. And I'll go ahead and email it.
It's available in all the same things. It's on Amazon and Tubi, which is, our horror fans' dream. Yeah, no, it's available on anything. I still get a check every 3 months, for that. It streams really well because the artwork is amazing.
Ooh.
The artwork that the distributor did is really, really good. So yeah, it's gonna be 10 years this year
Wow.
that got released.
Ooh. You know what would be
10 years.
fun? If we did a Hazmat 10-year anniversary stream. That would be pretty epic.
Oh wow.
I
Well, watch it first to make sure you like it before you decide to do that.
I'm always down. I mean, we've seen things killing, and that's pretty bad. So
Really, everybody
that,
loved that one. I just added it to my queue. I was gonna watch it tonight.
yeah, it's good, but really bad.
No, I think she's getting it mixed up, Luna, with Thanksgiving, the new
Oh,
movie. Yeah, this is Thanksgilling. It's like
Oh,
a killer
Thanksgiving.
turkey.
Oh,
Yes, it's a killer
no, I
turkey.
haven't seen that one either.
there's a
I
little
never heard of that
murderous turkey going around town killing people. It's quite the hoot, if you know what I mean.
one.
Hoot.
Wow, but original.
Original.
You gotta
Yeah.
get on that.
Original recipe. Nom, 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 nom.
Well,
That
this is also a slasher. It's actually my only slasher, and I will continue. It did so well. I wanted to make part 2, and I wanted to continue doing slashers because they're so much fun. And then my distributor talked me out of it. He's like, no, slashers are not doing very well anymore. Go more into the thriller thing. But I really regret not doing it because it's still to this day I get messages on social media and stuff, people saying, oh my god, I saw it and I loved it, and I'm just like, crap, I should have done it. Because for the longest time the building that we shot the film in was still there. So we could have gone back and just just shoot, I even had the script. So we could have done part 2 in there. And then of course now it's been demolished and like a brand new condo is there. So no longer even enough.
You can't green screen it.
Right. Yes. AI's got to be good for something, right? Just create it with AI.
True. Very true.
We had Terrifier, that's been doing pretty well. It's just a simple slasher, right? We don't always have to explain what's going on in the killer's mind. He can just be freaking evil.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I think people don't understand that people really like that really kind of insane, gory stuff, So if you even have a remotely like a clever little thing, it works. And ours is like it's mostly like live action. I don't know what to call it, but it's normal a normal film. But there's a bit of it that is done a little bit like found footage, just a little bit, just enough of a mixture of it so that it keeps it interesting, because it's a TV show similar to Scary Antics. Remember that show? It's like a show. It's like that, except they call scare tactics.
Scare tactics. There you go.
So our show is Scary Antics. Got that stuff. Our show in the movie is called Scary Antics, and then so it's that kind of a show. So there's a little bit of that, especially at the beginning, where you're gonna in the setup you'll see like as if you were watching it through the show, where they're telling you, okay, what the setup, what the joke is. So you get a little bit of that.
Interesting. Is there a particular genre that you'd like to do next, or you'd like to work on? And is there a genre that you're like, I never want to touch, I never want to go there?
In terms of genre that I wouldn't want to touch, I really wouldn't want to do drama. I'm just not a drama person. I'll be honest. I have one drama script that I wrote, and it's very personal because it's about my family and our lives in Cuba, and then coming over to the United States, and how we got here. But other than that, honestly, like I just I don't really have calling for it. Like I'll watch some movies, but it's not something that I'm like, oh my god, like I haven't seen Oppenheimer. Sorry. I'll watch it eventually, but it's not one of those things where I'm like, I can't wait to go watch it. Let me go to the theater. I'll watch it. I'll probably
I think
like
you'll
3
like
hours
it.
long, so I know I'll watch it like over like a week or something.
I think you'll like it because it's the bomb.
I don't know. In terms of what I want to do next, I really would love to do sci-fi. I have a film that we were all set to shoot in 2020 that is a sort of post-apocalyptic future thing. It's called Atom 6, and it's about a guy who wakes up and he is the last surviving man on Earth, and he is been kept alive by a colony of all women. So it's just one guy, and the rest of the cast is female.
So breeding.
And I was all excited about it, and then the whole thing, they're trapped underground, and all this other stuff, and then COVID hit, and then we lost the investor because obviously production shut down completely, blah blah blah. So even though it had a little bit of horror in it, it's very hard for me not to include a little bit of horror in it. It was kind of bloody at certain points, but overall it was more sci-fi. And I would love to shift into that a little bit, just because I think it's on a practical side, it's a genre that is not done enough. So there's more of a need for it. And so it's more likely to be successful financially. And even though, honestly, horror thrillers is definitely more what I love, but honestly, anything that's kind of like an interesting story is interesting to me. That it appeals to me.
Well, sci-fi really bleeds into horror, I believe, a lot of the times, or at least I guess the very successful ones that we know of are sci-fi horror, like Aliens and things like that. But there are some really beautiful ones, like The Man Who Fell on Earth, that just makes me cry, and it's just so beautiful. So those don't tend to do well in the box office, but they have a long life. They continue afterwards.
I agree. There's a lot of crossover, because especially if they're usually in settings that are kind of scary if I'm in and of themselves. Like just being on space is kind of scary if you think about it. Like you can't leave where the capsule you're in, or you can't just step outside, if you will. So it makes you vulnerable, and I think that's the thing that's a little scary about sci-fi. It's kind of, or you can have aliens that try to kill you. So one way or the other, it's a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a little scary.
Some aliens.
With
Either
acid.
they're COVID or they're popping out of your chest. One or the other, right?
Those like alien abduction movies always freak me the fuck out because there's nothing you can do to like stop it. They're just gonna come down and snatch you and probe you and do all this weird stuff, and there's like nothing you can do to, you're so vulnerable. And those alien abduction movies always freak me out. I don't know.
Do you think it's true?
It's a case by case. Not every alien abduction story is true by any means, because some it's like, were you on LSD at the time? Oh, okay, yeah. Or were you taking your medicine? Like you know what I mean? If it's like a reputable source, then yeah,
Mhm.
I'll tend to believe them a little bit more. But it just kind of case by case, depending on who's saying it. We go
Yeah,
back
when you,
into
Definitely, I believe in aliens.
yeah, you think the whole Area 51 thing is true?
Yeah, I wouldn't push it past our government. They probably shot him down. They're like, oh, what's that? Oh, sorry, you crashed. Oops. Love it. We suck all your technology and make iPhones.
that's funny. That's great. But yeah, would you ever do a sci-fi movie?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I have two sci-fi scripts that I would love to make. The other
Ooh.
one, the one that I just told you about, which I'm still hoping to make it, and the other one, I will. The other one's underwater, actually. Yeah, you know,
Wait,
you know, we have that.
aliens
No,
underwater
it's
or
no. It's not. It's not
oh,
aliens.
oh.
It's just it's in the future. Also a little bit of post-apocalyptic. I don't know why I'm looking for the end of the earth in sci-fi scripts.
Oh, yeah.
It's more like, I mean, did you see the movie? What's it called? Underwater, I think it was, with Kristen Stewart.
Yes.
It's more like
Yes.
that. I mean, would
Nice.
you,
Okay.
right? Wouldn't you call that more sci-fi than anything else, or is that actually what?
Yeah, until the very end when you see kind of, I don't want to give anything away for people who haven't seen it, but I've never been a fan of her until I saw that movie. And I was like, all right,
Oh my God, me too,
this
right?
is
She was
really
so
good.
good in that. She was so good in that. I honestly was like, I had a whole new respect for her after that. I was like, damn, she did good.
No, I might need to watch that because I have absolute. I'm like,
Oh,
no.
it's so good. It's really good. It's really, really well done. And then when you find out that they actually shot in a sound stage to recreate all these underwater scenes, literally just they had to just kind of like blow little particles up in the air to make it look like they're underwater, but they're not. And you're like, wow, that's really, really well done.
No.
It's a really good story too. I mean, yeah, it's definitely worth watching. I really enjoyed it when I saw it.
Mm. I was thinking of remember that movie Deep Blue Sea where they have that research lab underwater? Imagine that they have a research lab, but then aliens come down and then bust through the research lab, and then there's all kinds of crazy shit going on. That'd be great.
And the
That'd be
aliens are
great.
like, research this.
Research this. That'd be awesome. I think that'd be great. You should do something like that. That'd be awesome.
That sounds
Oh,
expensive.
man. That sounds expensive. Yeah, especially if you get Samuel Jackson. Oh, that's gonna be really
Can we
expensive.
spoil that and say how long he's in the movie?
That's
Nice,
true.
nice.
I
That's
forgot
true.
what movie I just saw the other day. Oh, it was the movie Life. Have you seen that one?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm like,
For,
how much did
for
they pay Ryan
astronauts
Reynolds
are
for that?
really dumb.
That's another Samuel Jackson situation there that you're like, okay, wasn't expecting that.
That's so awesome. That's great. That's too much. So, I did see also that you wrote a movie called Agoraphobia, and I found that to be very interesting because they're in a remote part of Florida. Some weird stuff is happening, and then she's trapped in the house. So I just thought it was a fun play on words because normally agoraphobics are don't want to leave their house because they feel like this is safe, and this one is mostly implying the safe is good but you're trapped in your house. That's so fascinating. What kind of gave you the idea to do this movie?
I was driving through Key West or the Keys, and there were all these beautiful houses down there. And all of a sudden, it just kind of hit me that imagine living in one of these houses, but you're like surrounded by all this beauty, but you can't go outside because you're afraid. You have agoraphobia. So I started playing with that idea, and then all of a sudden it occurred to me, but imagine if now you find out that the house is haunted, you can go outside, but at the same time, you're not safe inside. So what do you do? And so it just went on from there. It's just crazy stuff that comes into my mind.
It's dark. I
don't even know what. I have no idea where it comes from.
Well,
Comes
oh
from the
man,
darkness of our souls.
that'd be a fucked up situation to be in, though, if you think about it. Because if you agoraphobic and don't want to go outside, but then you're having to face demons inside, so it's like, what the fuck do you do? Do you go outside and conquer your agoraphobia and move away, or do you stay potentially with whatever haunting is happening in the house? Like,
Which is life, you know.
I mean,
Bad things happen no matter where you go.
You're screwed. And I guess it's a recurring thing in my movies is this idea of like, how much can we trust what she's saying if she's mentally ill, right? She's on this medication because she has all these phobias and she has whatever. So can we really trust her when she's telling us she's seeing ghosts? And it's always subtle at first, and just keeps progressing and getting more like, okay, hold on, something's really going on here. So it's yeah, now that I think about it, I have that a lot in my films, but I mean, I think it's quite common in the genre overall. You always have to have one person who notices before everybody else.
That kind of reminds me a little bit of the Nine Windows a little bit, because there's a different kind of disability, right? In this one, in agoraphobia, she has the mental disability, and in the other one, it's like the physical disability, and they're both, fighting to be believed until shit hits the fan, and then finally somebody believes them.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. You found a formula that you excel at and you go with it.
Yeah, I
think
have.
no matter what, Lou, you need to keep writing. No matter what happens, keep writing. Right?
Oh yeah, no, that
have
I
you
think
learned through your writing? Because anytime I've written and showed it to someone and read it, they've realized that things that were going on in my life at the time, and I didn't necessarily write it in there. So tell us about a time that maybe something similar happened to you and you wrote something and realized maybe yourself, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
I always joke around, but at the same time, not a joke. I just don't think people will really believe me that I don't really write it. Like something else writes through me. Like I just finished a script, and I swear to God, it was just the weirdest experience because it was probably different from. I mean, it was definitely very different than anything I'd written before. It's not a horror film at all. It is a heist / spy thriller. And something like the idea popped into my mind, which, where does that idea even come from, right? Like it's not something that I would normally write. So where did that come from? And then I swear to God, it would keep me up at night, like with ideas just flooding into my head that I would have to like pick up my phone and like type it in so I wouldn't forget it the next day. I would wake up in the morning and be like, oh, this one time I was literally driving and I went on autopilot for like 15 minutes and then I realized that I had completely gone off course. I had to take exit and turn around and go back because I was so into like, oh, I know this, blah, 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 blah,
That happens to me a lot. Now I can tell my husband why.
I'm like, I was like, I can't believe I am so into the story. That's something, I mean, I enjoy heist movies fine, but I can't really say that I'm like obsessed with them. I'll watch once in a moon, once in a blue moon, but it's not like something that I'm like, oh, I can't wait for the next heist movie to come out. You know, like I do that with horror films, but I wouldn't say that I do that with any other genre. And then it just literally nagged at me so much that I started, you know, I took all my notes. I did the outline, and then I wrote it over. I wrote a big chunk of it in one day, and then I finished the rest of it waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning to write from 6 to 9 to then go to work, and then finish it that way, which I never done. I've never been able to write before going to work. It's always been like, okay, today's my writing day. It's on the weekend, you know, I'm going to wake up today, I'm going to write, you know, and I, you know, do this was like, I just couldn't not stop thinking about it. And so I ended up writing it over a week, but in small intervals, which I've never done ever. So
That's awesome.
Whoa.
so where's it coming from? I have no idea. It wasn't for me. Like I read it, you know,
I believe there's a higher like knowledge base, like a consciousness that certain people can tap into. And that's why I think at certain times we get a lot of the same movies with similar themes or stories or books about very similar things, because that is just in that consciousness that's kind of shared. You know, like why birds or animals know to go to the same nesting ground. Like, how do they know that? I think we have something like that we're just not all tapped into.
yeah, that makes perfect sense to me, because honestly, like I don't remember making conscious decision about a lot of the stuff. It just came out of nowhere.
And lucky
I mean,
for us that
That's
enjoy.
what Stephen King says as well. You know, some of the greatest authors of our time, they literally write because they have to. Like they have to. They have these things in their minds, and they got to get them out, or they'll go crazy or drive their friends and family crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Is there something that you're working on right now that you're like, ooh, I'm working on a murder mystery, or something that you're like dying to finish?
No, I just finished one on Monday night.
Ooh,
I
that's pretty
finished,
recent.
yeah, Monday or Tuesday. I don't even remember which day it was. Which I had written before. It was actually a rewrite. Oh crap! I know. I forgot. I need to do something. But anyway, that is it's more of my thing, which is it's 5 friends at a cabin, you know, and it's definitely a horror film. But it's I really enjoyed writing it, and if I do make another film, it'll be that one, because it's a pretty simple, and I wrote it for that reason. You know, I wrote it because I was looking for something. I have another film that's called 3 and I 4 and I. That is probably my favorite film that I've ever made, but it was also on top of that like the one where I had the most fun making it. Even though there was a lot of stuff that went wrong, but it's still, it was just a group of us just getting, like friends, just getting together and making this film together in, you know, in a house, you know, up in Chattanooga. We all stayed together and just filmed and had a great time doing it. And I just wanted to go back to that, because the last one, 9 Windows, which, you know, was just a huge production. You know, it was shot, you know, using the Unreal Engine, in a big studio. I can't even tell you how many people were on the crew, but it was a lot. And it just, even though everybody was very nice and, you know, and using this new technology was exciting, it was also incredibly stressful. It was, at the end of the day, not an enjoyable filming experience, just because it was just too much stress, you know, and we're all learning this technology at the same time. because it's so new, and it was shot entirely in an extended reality stage. So everything behind her is fake. There was not other than anything that she was touching. Everything else is a projection. So it just, it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
Oh, wow.
So for me, it was like, I just want to go back to basics and have fun, and just do it in a small crew with a small set of actors, and just have fun filming, as opposed to trying to do something, revolutionary. But at the same time, because of that, you're kind of like relearning the whole process all over again. Like directing under those conditions was just brand new in every way. Like stuff I never even thought about that I had to take into account. By day 16, I was already an expert, but day one, it was like, oh crap, wait, how do we do this on the stage again? How can you do that when you can't, you can't move the camera this way or that way because, the background's not real. It was very stressful. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh God, I can imagine. Wow. That's quite the feat, but you did it. Now you can say you have that under your belt, and if you
I may have aged like 10 years, but yeah, but we finished.
Well, you don't look it.
You definitely do not look
You should have
it.
seen me before.
Wow. That's
Before you were a
hilarious.
child.
Oh my goodness. That is so funny. All right. Kat, let's start to wrap up. Do you have any other questions for Miss Lou?
No, it's been such a pleasure talking with you, Lou. And anytime you want to come join us and chat, you just let us know.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Oh, I'm glad you had a lot of fun. So viewers, check us out next week where we're going to have another fantastic episode. And again, thank you so much for listening and watching. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, boils and ghouls. It's your old pal, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I want to thank you for listening to Delight and Fright with your hosts, Luna and Kat, a podcast for outcasts.